Hello, it's Dave here. I'm with my wife, Cathy.
Hello.
It's, what is it, 6:05 again?
Yeah, so we said last week that we weren't going to get up early again to watch Game of Thrones, and then Dave made plans after work tonight.
Yeah, well, there's only so many days
Yes.
in the week, so I had
we're up
to do
again
it.
early.
It's very early. Cathy is insisting that we record this out in the garden to try and wake me up.
To wake you up?
Apparently I sound terribly tired
Yes, you
at
do.
6 a.m. But I'm doing my best here. What's the name of this episode?
It's called The Queen's Justice, Season 7, Episode 3, so that's a really good title.
Ooh.
I hope it means Cersei and she's going to do some bad shit.
It probably does mean Cersei.
Yeah.
I guess.
She is the queen.
She is the queen.
Yeah.
But then it could mean Daenerys. She's the queen of dragons.
It could
She's
mean Daenerys.
the mother, or is she the mother of dragons?
She's both, I
She's
think.
got so many names.
Yeah.
I forget to say.
So yeah, let's go.
And this one's written by Weiss and Benioff. I know that because you
just saw it.
insisted on skipping the credits and pausing on their names.
Well, I told Dave if we're going to get up at 6 a.m. and it's his fault, we ain't watching no credits.
Yeah, but what's better to wake you up than do 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 do? Just watched Game of Thrones Season 7 Episode 3. We are walking to the train. We've got a
25
very
minutes.
tight 25 minutes
Yes.
to wrap all this stuff. That was a really eventful episode.
It was so good. I kept thinking, oh, it's going to end now. Oh, it's going to end now. And it just didn't. It was like the gift that kept on giving.
So many high points.
And you know what? I'm loving
we wrote
this.
down so many notes.
I know. I'm loving this 7-season arc because...
Seven
episode arc, sorry. They're basically packing everything in. Like, the episodes are so good.
Everything is very condensed. There's no travelling time. There's no...
I
basically, this episode starts with Jon arriving at Dragonstone.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, the wind was on our backs. It was great.
So, last...
we got it real easy.
last episode was... do you know what? We should invite Jon Snow here. Send a raven. Next scene. Hey, we had a raven.
In an
do you
old
want to go to
series, that would have
Dragonstone?
taken,
Absolutely.
2 seasons.
Next episode, he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have... that's a long distance.
So anyway, we'll do Jon's, Tyrion's and Daenerys' plot first. I loved when Jon arrived and him and Tyrion greeted each other like old friends.
Yeah, which is a little bit much. I mean, they met twice?
Yeah, but
I
if
guess
you're
they were
living
very,
in Game
very
of Thrones,
amiable.
if you're living in Game of Thrones where everyone dies all the time, to actually meet someone who you kind of liked a couple of years ago and they're still alive, they're like, oh, you've got a few scars, and they take Jon's sword. Was that his special sword?
Yeah, I think so. That was his dragon glass sword.
He gave it up quite easy. And then I thought it was really funny when Davos and Melisandre, he started being like, ooh, what's that accent? I don't recognise it. And then she told him where she was from, and he's like, ooh, the weather's nice there, isn't it? And she's like, what is this?
What was he doing? I didn't know what he was doing either. Was he flirting with her?
No, I think he was just being polite.
Small talk.
But she's just never made small talk in her life, and she was so bemused. It was the kind of conversation we would just have if we met someone and we were being polite, basically.
Right.
So I did enjoy
Is that what was happening? I thought maybe he was kind of testing her. Because then he says at the end of that to Jon, he says, things have changed around here.
I don't know what he meant. And then Tyrion...
People were better at small talk before?
We've so much to get through in 25 minutes.
Okay, go on.
Tyrion asks about Sansa and just goes, oh, by the way, we never consummated our marriage. It's like, okay, that's a bit inappropriate.
He goes, a sham marriage.
And then he makes a joke about how he's always drunk, and Jon just does not laugh because Jon will never laugh.
Yeah.
Jon's not having it.
Well, I mean, if I met my brother-in-law and he shout out to Jon, and he was like, "Oh, how's your sister doing?" Sham marriage.
Yeah, but
I'm always drunk.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Jon would have guessed. And then the dragons show off and fly overhead, and Tyrion's like, "You never get used to that." Then we go to the Red Witch and Varys, which let's just skip through. Basically, she says, "I brought ice and fire together. It would be a distraction if I stayed. No reason to explain what I've done to Jon Snow, and I will return at last."
Or what he did to Davos's best friend.
Oh God, I know.
That poor little girl.
I have to die here, just like you. And Varys is like, ooh, prophecy. And that's the end of that scene.
Did you just prophesize me, bitch?
Then the throne room. Now, this is kind of one of the most important scenes of the episode. How did you think it went?
I thought, well, up to this point, I thought a lot of the dialogue was weird and stilted. Even in that scene with Melisandre and Varys, it feels like, I've never read the books, but it feels like a lot of the best dialogue must have been in the books, and now that the writing has suffered a little bit.
To be fair to them, they've so much plot to condense into these tiny scenes.
I know, but it was very much like, again, it felt like recapping. It was like how's your sister? I married her. Do you remember? It was a sham.
What did you think of her throne? It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very, it's like very modern.
Yeah, it was very
21st century.
Very interesting.
It feels like very sort of like dark IKEA.
And did you
if
feel
you walked into a section of IKEA and there was just this whole
it does look a bit like that
section.
Did you have a moment of being excited when you walked into the room? I have to say I didn't, because I'd already seen it promoted, so I was like, I've seen him walk in. I don't know, I thought I've seen it.
I thought this scene was great. Any problem I'd had with the dialogue up to this point was kind of quelled.
Well, what about this dialogue then?
I enjoyed watching them sort of.
What about this dialogue? You stand in the presence of Daenerys Stormborn of House of Targaryen, rightful heir to the Iron Throne, rightful queen of the Andals, and the first men, protector of the Seven Kingdoms, the mother of dragons, the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the unburnt, the breaker of chains. Now, I think at this point, she needs to get over herself. That was my overwhelming feeling from this scene. It was like, and I just really like the way Jon's like, you're only queen because of your father, and that's his perception. And all this showboating from her does not tell him anything, when in fact what she should have opened with is, I freed slaves because I care about people.
Oh,
like,
that was in there somewhere. That was one of her names.
Yeah, but
Freer of Unbreaker of Chains. Or
and she's just, and they go, this is Jon Snow, he's King of the North. And she's being really rude. She's like, in perpetuity, your forefathers swore to mine. So she brings forefathers up.
And she's like, Tyrion, remind me what in perpetuity means.
Yeah, she's just being a dick, basically. And then he says, well then, your father burnt my grandfather and my uncle alive. She's like, oh, forget about that. Please give forgiveness for that. So she expects forgiveness for her father's actions, but expects him to swear fealty based on something one of his ancestors did. So she's got complete double standards.
She's like, look, I'm really sorry about what my dad did to your entire family, but do you mind bending the knee?
Yeah, and she's, I am the last Targaryen. I'm like, I don't think so.
Whoa-oh.
And then he's like,
I don't understand monarchies, right? Who'd have the claim to the throne from the Targaryen side?
Well, he's a bastard.
He's a
either
male.
way. He's a bastard. I'm using that in the context of Game of Thrones.
He's still a bastard.
But he says, look, you're better than Cersei, but we're all children playing a game. And she's like, you're calling me a child? And Tyrion's like, I believe he's calling all of us children, like, shut up, Daenerys.
I like that line.
Yeah.
Did you think that Jon, when they list off all her titles, and then Davos goes, this is Jon Snow? Did you think that was such an obvious gag?
No, because then
he's King of the North. I do like Davos, he's amazing.
Davos starts defending Jon, and she does say, look, I think she realises that she's made a bit of a fool of herself, because she steps down and starts actually addressing him and says, so many men have tried to kill me, I don't remember their names, but I have faith in myself, Daenerys. It's like, okay, we get it, we know your name. And he's
I'd love it if at that stage she had listed off all her titles
again. And he's
I have faith in myself, Daenerys, Stormborn, Queen of the Dragons, Unburned,
like,
and Breaker of Chains.
And then
what would your
he's
name?
like, fine,
what would your name be if you had all those titles?
Dave, we've got 15 minutes left to recap this episode. He's like, you'll be ruling
Cathy,
over a graveyard.
Usher of podcasts.
And Davos stands up and says, well, it doesn't matter whose skeleton sits on the throne. Get over yourself, basically. And then Jon says, your claim to the throne rests entirely on your father's name. Like, you are an open rebellion. I was like, you're playing this all wrong, Daenerys, but she does redeem herself. And then she finds out that he says, am I your prisoner? She's like, not yet. And he goes off, and she finds out that the Dorans and Greyjoys have been captured. So then the next scene was...
Yeah, with some whispering from Varys.
With some whispering. Jon and Tyrion on the cliff, which you basically said was The Last Jedi.
Did you not... Yeah. we took a picture of... There's a shot in this, a really wide sort of helicopter shot of Jon and Tyrion on the side of a cliff. And that is from The Last Jedi.
It was just directly...
I thought this would have been shot in Ireland. It looks like it, but you're saying
I've heard it's northern Spain, so I don't know. And
that's where they're shooting the Dragonstone stuff.
Tyrion says, you look a lot better brooding than I do, which is quite fun.
That was a good line.
And Jon again does not laugh. Jon's having none of it.
Jon is incapable of laughing, especially when he's brooding.
Yeah, and
Don't interrupt my brooding,
he's
man.
like, why didn't you believe me about the White Walkers? And Tyrion's like, listen, mate, you need to come up, like, don't just come and ask for us to defeat an army of the undead. Like, ask for something small. Tyrion's giving him really good advice. And
I thought so too.
It's
it's like, it's not reasonable. You can't ask somebody, what does he say? Yeah, somebody you just met after one meeting to drop everything and go fight a war that may or may not exist.
Yeah, so I think that was all a fair scene, and I enjoyed it. John's like, here I am, a northern fool. And it's like, yeah, pretty much.
And I like the following scene where Tyrion is trying to do the same. This feels like this is what Tyrion is best at, and he's at his best again, is mediating and
he's a
playing
diplomat.
everyone and figuring out solutions, which he wasn't doing a lot of last season. He was just making a load of stupid mistakes because he was out of his depth. But now he's back in Westeros. He knows what he's doing, he knows the players, and he negotiated a perfect deal here. It's like, Jon wants dragonglass, you've got dragonglass, you don't care about dragonglass, let him have the dragonglass.
He says, give him something by giving him nothing.
And
she says, what do you reckon about them saying he'd been stabbed in the heart? And he's like, oh, never mind that, allow them their flights of fancy, it's dreary in the north.
Yeah, I like that. And I liked the line he had. I don't remember what he said to her, but he said some old phrase, and she goes, who said that? I don't remember. And she said, are you trying to present your own words as ancient wisdom?
But he says, well, not to you.
I wouldn't do that to you.
And then the next scene is Jon and Daenerys, which I liked, just two of them alone, because first of all I was like, they're so gobsmackingly beautiful together. Though people have told me my theory of them hooking up is not right at all. That's fine. And
Wait,
then
who do you think's going to hook up?
I had thought Jon and Daenerys were going to hook up, but everyone tells me that's not happening because they're related.
Well, I just don't see it happening. No.
Anyway, they're just stunningly beautiful, and they're admiring the dragons. And she's like, I will allow you to mine dragon glass and give you resources. And Jon just stands there with a fucking miserable face again and goes, so you believe me? And she just doesn't answer the question. She's like, be gone.
You really believe me?
So Jon
wants people to believe
he just runs, which I quite enjoyed. He's literally running to mind it.
Do you know what Jon is like? He's like he's like every child in every sort of 80s monster movie who's witnessed the monster firsthand and is running through the streets, but nobody believes him.
Nobody cares.
He's a child.
They're like, shut up, Jon. And then the last scene with these guys was really good, was back in the war room. And she's saying, I'm just going to kill Euron with my dragons. And people are like, you can't do that. You can't, sacrifice, put your life at risk. It's only you and the 3 dragons. You can still be killed. She's like, oh, I am Khaleesi. And then they're talking about what's it called? Casterly Rock.
So here we get this. We get one of these classic scenes that you used to get a lot, like in movies like Ocean's 11, which is when somebody narrates what's going to happen. You narrates the plan, and then you see the plan.
I enjoyed that
out.
actually. I wouldn't criticize it.
Yeah, but it's a very old and tried and true technique. So you get sort of Tyrion narrating exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be tough to get in, and then we see them getting killed by the wall. It's an impenetrable fortress, but hey,
I built the sewers, bitches.
I built the sewers, basically. I really liked his line though, because his father wouldn't have built the sewers because that was beneath him. So
I really
he found
enjoyed
someone
it.
perfect for the job.
And he managed to bring his own height into it as well. I'm a low person, so I deal in low places.
But this was essentially a heist.
Yeah.
That's exactly how a heist movie.
So that ended really enjoyably, and we're like, okay, they're going to win this battle, to be continued. Now we're going to Winterfell with Sansa Littlefinger, and she is so regal.
I cannot find my notes in the
She's
wind
literally wandering around like a queen, just saying, there's not enough food for winter, that armour isn't made with leather. And Littlefinger's like, command suits you, in his really creepy way again. And then he says, nobody knows Cersei like I do. She's very dangerous. And she's like, thank you for your wise counsel, lol, because she killed my mom, my dad, and my brother, so I don't need your help. She's completely burned.
I thought he gave her great advice here, though, which was fight every battle everywhere in your mind, and then nothing will surprise you. Like, expect anything to happen from anywhere. Everyone is your enemy, everyone is your friend. Think of every possible outcome and scenario.
He's like, including me murdering you at any point.
But actually, he's completely right, and that's how you survive in Westeros, and it's how he survived. And he is one of the most successful characters in this series because he knows exactly how this world works.
Yeah, it was good advice. cynical but good. And then, surprise, Bran shows up. We were both like, what? We forgot about Bran.
This is the only time I've ever been happy to see Bran.
I know.
But then he ruined it with his
but
being
I
so
cried
serious.
when they were reunited, even though
Did
I'd
you?
forgotten about him and don't care about him. Yeah, I thought it was
No,
really nice.
I thought, well, Sansa had the correct emotion, but Bran's all like, I'm a three-eyed raven now and don't have time for your petty games.
And
then,
she's like, you're Lord of Winterfell, and I almost thought she was a bit pleased about it. Like, she wants Jon to be usurped.
oh, maybe.
Yeah, but he's like, no, I'm
Well, that's because her
raven.
and Jon are unable to have a proper meeting or like talk about
Plus,
things.
she knows she could push Bran around if he was king. Like, she'd probably have a lot more power. So yeah,
You literally push him around.
he literally
Does
was
he?
just like, and then this got really weird. So he's being a complete drag, right? They haven't seen each other since season 1. Am I right?
Yeah, and he's
And
all
then he
like,
starts going-
so she's like, oh, what have you been up to in the last 6 seasons? Oh, and he's like, oh,
He's
you
like,
know,
well, I skipped a whole season.
didn't do a lot. Managed to fuck up absolutely everything. Got the three-eyed raven killed. Oh, Hodor died. Do you remember him?
And
yeah,
then
that
he's
was
like,
my fault.
oh, this is
Um,
such a beautiful evening, much like your wedding night.
This was
That was
the
so
creepiest
gross.
fucking thing.
Yeah.
What was he on about? You looked so beautiful. Like, it's like you've experienced some really hard things. I'm sorry that happened to happen to you. Remember your wedding night?
Yeah,
It's like,
remember
no,
when you
stop
were
reminding
murdered,
her.
you were raped by a horrible monster.
Couldn't you make the point that you can see everything everywhere that ever happened in a better way
Be
than
like, I'm
reminding
proud
her?
of you and John, how you conducted yourself or something.
Yeah, don't remind her of one of the most horrible moments of her entire life.
Yeah.
And then twinge it with something like, say, oh, you look nice though. Oh, look, don't worry about that horrible experience you have. But you know what? The pictures will look really good.
And then she just rightfully storms off, and that was the end of that. And then we get to...
Yeah, Bran is just a robot.
Yeah, I hate Bran.
But do you know the theory? There's a quick one. There is a theory out there that I read that do you remember Bran in last season had a vision of the Night King and the White Walkers, and that he touched him in the vision, and then when Bran woke up, he had a mark on him, and that was when the White Walkers were able to attack the area with the three-eyed raven. So the theory is that he carries a brand now, the Bran brand, which
Bran
allows the White Walkers to penetrate the magic.
He's like 1-1, he's Bran
because
Bran.
that because that area was protected by magic. Do you know what other area is protected by magic?
What?
The wall, which Bran has now crossed through. So potentially Bran has
really
just
excited about this
allowed
theory.
the White Walkers access through the White Wall. So again, everything is going to be Bran's fault.
So,
Potentially.
okay, good, I like that theory. And then finally, we're going to have... we get
How
to
much time have
Jorah.
we
We've enough time to cover Jorah, the Maester, and Sam, and then we're going to have to take a break and record the rest after work. So they're like, oh, in the library, in the room that Jorah had been locked up in, the infection is no
It's a
longer
miracle.
active. That was quite a fun scene, actually.
Well, I'm glad to see it was worth it. All that horrific pain and suffering from last year.
And they played it well. Obviously Jim Broadbent's amazing, but he's like, oh, so almost as if you had treatment. And Jorah's like, it's the climate and the rest, I guess. And
Yeah,
then they're all
enjoyed
kind of
that.
like, And then Jim Broadbent's like to Sam, right, I'll see you later in my study. And then Jorah becomes a complete creep again. And we did reference in last week's episode that he had been writing to Khaleesi when he thought he was dying. We found that letter online in his HBO episode archive. We put it on our Facebook and Instagram, and he's just a creep, basically.
Yeah, go have a look.
The
It's
first
exactly
thing he
what
says
you
to
think.
Sam is,
I still love you.
Oh, my life to Daenerys. Oh, and you as well, of course. Sorry, I keep calling her Cersei. I get their names mixed
And
up.
Sam shook his hand, which is a brave move.
Would you shake his hand?
I probably wouldn't have. I'd be like, okay, I think we probably got rid of this infection, but I'm not going to take that chance.
Yeah, you're not going to risk it. I've got a small child at home and a
Yeah,
wife
yeah.
that I should be,
This
thinking
entire
about.
citadel, which I also just put at risk, which is what Jim Broadbent mentions when he chews him out.
And then I can only but assume that Jorah just hops, skips and jumps out of there to get home to the love of his life, who has completely forgotten he ever existed.
I did, yeah, doesn't give a shit about him. I did enjoy Sam's sort of explanation for how he did it. I read the books and I followed the
I
instructions.
know, I really enjoyed that scene. So he's with the Maester, and the Maester's not really going to tell him off, even though they set it up like that.
No, but I like that he didn't let him get away with it. He still had to have a punishment because he broke them rules.
Yeah, and
All
he
right,
says, you
let's-
should be proud.
Come on, we got like less than 5 minutes. I think we can just wrap this up. So the big...
Wrap this up. Are you kidding me? Go through the entire Cersei plot in 5 minutes.
Oh, we've got to talk about the Cersei
the
plot.
entire Cersei and Jamie and Elena plot.
Oh my God,
We have to
okay,
wait till
go
after work.
No, come on, we can do this.
We can't. Dave, we can. It's a waste.
All right, so we got to go to work now. We didn't get time to cover everything.
We
so
didn't get time to cover the second or equally biggest plot of the whole episode, which is Cersei, Jamie and Elena and all the Dorne stuff. and all the Iron Island stuff. So I think
So
we
that's
need to
all
wait.
to come on part 2
Yeah.
of Mile of Thrones.
Yes.
I'll put some sort of dramatic transition music in right now.
Okay.
And we are back, and several hours have passed. This is essentially like when a raven leaves for somewhere and then arrives in the next scene. Because for the listeners, no time at all has passed.
No.
But we just had a whole day.
I mean, this is horrific.
At
Like,
work.
we began our day at 6 a.m. with Game of Thrones. It's now 10 p.m. We're ending it with Game of Thrones.
It's 10 p.m.
It's entirely Jay's fault for going out after work.
We're exhausted. And now we have to try and remember this episode that we saw.
No, because I was at home
14
waiting.
hours ago.
Because I was at home waiting for you, and we only had all the Cersei plot left. I just rewatched all the scenes.
You rewatched them?
Yeah.
You have an advantage on me
I
then.
couldn't remember it. I'd already forgotten the entire thing.
You have the worst
Yeah, well, it's
memory
because, the
for
premise of our podcast is immediate reactions, and I don't have the
this
memory
is
for non-immediate reactions.
Far from immediate.
Yeah.
Are you trying to imply that our podcast has ruined your long-term memory? Cathy, you were always bad for remembering movies.
Our podcast just suits me because I have a bad memory. Anyway, come on,
Right,
we need to get through this.
Yeah, let's go to bed.
So, first of all, this plot that we've left to last, and I'm glad we did because there's a lot, is essentially the Queen's Justice of the episode title, I would imagine.
Yeah, so it starts with the first sort of line of this plot is a direct follow-on from the last episode where we see Theon being pulled out of the cowardly waters when he literally jumped ship.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody at work today, actually. Did you get some things have happened since this morning?
We've way more
about
context.
this
I mean, I've
episode.
watched it twice now, so...
I was talking to somebody, shout out to Tom at work. He said that he read the episode synopsis for episode 2, saw a spoiler, and it was that Theon jumps ship. And he thought, oh my god, he's going to swap sides. He's going to different.
He was just literally.
He literally jumped ship.
And then they say, did you not try and help your sister? And he's like, oh, of course I did. And they're like, you wouldn't be here if you had tried.
Yeah, I mean, they got him dead to rights. Then we cut to Euron and his prisoners, marching them through King's Landing. This felt like a real throwback to the shame scene.
It really did feel like that. And I have to interject here with someone that I work with, who I spoke to today, Fiona, who's read the books and told me that we should have someone who read the books on the podcast. And she said...
she's trying to angle on for a spot.
Well, I told her she's welcome
Fiona,
to come over at 6 a.m. Told her she's welcome to come over at 6 a.m. and hang out with us if she wants. So basically, she said, in the last episode we were talking about how quietly Euron's ships had all come in and suddenly they were attacking them out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. She was saying that's because in the books Euron is so
stealth ships
mad and evil that he actually cuts all of his crew's tongues out so they can neither make noise or dissent against him because no one can speak to each other.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so really dark shit from him in the books. So I thought it was really interesting. And so this scene, as we said, is like the shame scene. He's taking the Queen of his niece. What was she? The Queen of the Iron Islands, and then the Queen of Dorne and her daughter.
Her name.
And he's dragging them through the
sand
streets.
Snakes, yeah.
And he's dragging them through the streets. And I just thought, well, these townspeople just throw shit at anyone. Like, no matter who's being brought through the streets, they will throw anything at them.
they're just
I just watched it again with more interest, like looking at the extras, and I was like, what are they doing?
But a few seasons ago, we had Natalie Dormer's character, Marjorie, when she was queen, when she married Joffrey. She was going around the streets and the people were poor and she was handing them things. So they're just chucking away their veg.
Yeah, just like...
They're just like, you gotta hang on to this stuff. If you're poor and starving, that stuff is valuable.
It's
Don't be
really
throwing it at
weird.
the sand snakes.
And
I've got another little incidental thing that I learned in the interim of us being away today. So I met up with tonight. What I was doing was I met up with Kobe from the Flixwatcher podcast, and he pointed out to me that one of the sand snakes is one of the lead characters from Iron Fist, the martial arts instructor, who was very good in that.
Oh, because they're all terrible in this.
Yeah, I know, but actually she was very good in Iron Fist. But yeah, the Sand Snake actresses aren't good.
They're terrible. And then I just thought this was a strange line from the Mad Uncle. He said to somebody, "Did you see Theon's face? What a twat." Now that feels like very modern language to me. Is
twat?
Yeah, do they use that word in Game of Thrones?
It's the first time I've ever heard it.
Yeah, I just thought it felt really
it's a bit
out of
Delboy,
place.
isn't it?
Yeah, and like I just felt like, okay,
you plonker.
Like we've
you
just
plonker,
seen
Theon.
From Theon's perspective him being dragged out of the water, but as we know, time moves strangely in Game of Thrones. Now Euron hasn't just gotten out of the water, like where he would just be relaying what happened with Theon. Like, that Theon thing's happened a while ago to him. So why is he walking around talking about what a twat Theon is? It felt like a bit too on the nose for us. I mean, just didn't ring very true.
I think Weiss and Benioff tried to address this last season because a lot of people were asking about these kind of things, and they said that not all the plots are happening at the same time. So while we're experiencing things in a linear sense, that's not necessarily they're not happening at the same time.
Well, there's no way, because he had to get from the ocean to King's Landing.
Whereas Theon probably wasn't in the water that entire time.
Though I know they were close to King's Landing because they were coming.
They were quite close.
They were coming, yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was weird. And then it cuts to the throne room where all these people end up with the Mountain and Cersei and Jaime. I just watched this again and it's just so enjoyable. Like, Lena Headey is just like out of control amazing in this episode.
She's really good.
Yeah, and he's like, I give you what no other man can give you, justice for your murdered daughter. And then I was like, oh, I forgot that the Doran woman had murdered her daughter.
Poisoned her, yeah.
Because so much has happened in the show that I had forgotten that. So that obviously now the Queen's Justice is coming in here.
And there's a great little moment, before we get to the Queen's Justice, there's a great little bit of banter between Euron and Jaime when they get announced as the new heads of the Navy and the Army, and Euron is just nasty as all hell to him.
Oh my god, he's disgusting, because Cersei says you shall have what your heart desires when the war is won, implying she'll marry him. Now, I'd be very surprised if she married him, because why would she?
If the war will be won.
If the war is won, then why would she marry him? Because she doesn't need his ships anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, doubt it, even though Lannisters claim to always pay their debt. And then he says to Jaime, I need some advice from you. Does she like it gentle or rough, or a finger in the bum? And we actually gasped out of that. Like, that's shocking.
But the way, if you watch that, the expression on that actor's face when he delivered that, he is reveling in it. Like, and Jamie's face just goes like, what?
Jamie's reeling because Jaime genuinely loves Cersei and thinks she's like such a lady.
It was just nasty stuff.
Yeah, it was really funny though. Like to properly, for us to laugh out loud and gasp at the same time.
So then let's get to the Queen's Justice. This was like, we've kind of seen stuff like this from Cersei before, when she finally got that shame lady with the bell, and do you remember she left her in with the Mountain? Like, you probably don't remember this because
I do remember that. But what's interesting about that scene was, from Cersei's perspective, I was actually rooting for her because what had happened to her had been so horrific. In this instance, this is all just terrible because she...
Yeah, but they murdered her daughter.
Yeah, but...
Unnecessarily.
But Cersei had also murdered her husband, or been part of her husband being killed. And it's all just tit for tat back and forth, because she was trying to get her own brother killed. And
Oberyn kind of got himself killed.
Yeah, but she was trying to kill her own brother. Then her brother got Oberyn to fight for him. Then her Mountain killed Oberyn. Then your one killed her daughter. Like, it's all tit for tat. No. And it's so interesting because it's the exact opposite of Jon and Daenerys' plot, where they're both saying we don't punish people for the sins of their fathers. These two women are directly punishing each other's daughters for their own sins.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah. I only got that on the second watching.
See the added insight you get from Game of Thrones After Dark.
Really, actually really interesting as a contrast between the two characters. And she's just saying awful things like, ooh, I can still hear the sound of Oben's skull breaking when I close my eyes. Nasty. And then she says, why did you take my daughter from me? It's like, well, why do you think? Because you're a horrible person.
But the punishment that she concocts is quite horrible. So it's there's a poetic justice to it. She does it in the exact same poison that was used on her daughter. Did
you notice before it happened that the Doran Sand daughter looked really confused? And I was like, what part of this aren't you getting? Like, you're going to die.
Yeah, she was... I think they're just bad actors.
Yeah. I like that you're whispering that in case they're listening. I thought the Queen of Doran did quite a good job, actually. Normally I'm not her biggest fan, but I thought she acted that scene really well. Like, she looked so traumatized.
Oh, so horrified.
Yeah, and she's all gagged and everything.
Oh, but oh god, it was such a horrible fate. Like, just to sit there and watch your daughter. And
Cersei says, I don't sleep very well. I lie in bed thinking of ways to kill my enemies.
Yeah,
she's mental.
I mean, that's what I do as well. I don't know. Did you know that about me?
I didn't know that. Yeah, no.
That's why I've been waking up so often.
And so it's called The Long Farewell. I mean, that in itself is a horrific name for a poison.
I don't want her to miss a thing.
Yeah.
When she said that, did you think of the Aerosmith song?
No.
I don't want to close my eyes.
They wouldn't even let her close her eyes, I'd say.
Don't want to fall
And she says,
asleep.
we will change the torches and keep you fed. Like, basically, and you're going to sit here and watch your daughter rot.
That's a fate worse than death.
That is horrific. And like the episode title is just like so sublimely clear at this moment. And I just thought it was such an interesting scene, contrasted it with the other two who were like, you know, all forgiving of each other.
She's not going to miss a thing.
No, so that was like quite horrific. And the daughter's going, Mother! It's like, look, honey, you're dead. Like, don't even, like, what are you doing?
Anyway, let's wrap this up because we've no time limit.
We've no time limit now.
No train
I
to
have
get
to go to
We're
bed.
just sitting on the
Jamie and Cersei. So initially, when it cut to them in the bed chambers, I thought, oh, Jamie's reluctant, and then I was like, oh no, wait a minute, Jamie's
You finally got
not
your
reluctant.
wish. You've been wondering for the last 3 episodes whether they're boning or not.
Well, I've just been curious because they've not made it clear, and then in this episode it was made very clear. And really interestingly, when she's so emboldened now by what she did yesterday and the kind of win with Euron and what she did to the Queen of Dorne, that she opens the door with Jamie like naked in her bed,
Yeah.
and then she says, we'll need fresh sheets for the bed, which is like pretty saucy thing to say.
And he's like, maybe we shouldn't let everyone know this horrible secret that is the worst kept secret in King's Landing.
In this episode, 2 separate people say to Jamie just casually about Joffrey being his son.
Yeah, sure. Everyone knew.
Oh no, one person, Olenna, says it about Joffrey being his son, but like even like Euron Greyjoy is like, oh yeah, I know you shag your sister. Like everyone knows.
But sure, it was the talk of Westeros.
Like he's been exiled of like for 20 years. Like how did he know?
The gossip ravens were going all around.
They were
it.
going, and then the next.
Do you think
scene,
they have like tabloid ravens? Like
I think it's all about Jamie and
like
Cersei.
the Daily Mail of ravens.
Yeah, I think so. And then it cuts to the bank where we learn that Cersei's in considerable debt, and she says, "But a Lannister always pays their debt." It's pretty much the gist of the scene, isn't it?
I mean, that's how I deal with our mortgage.
Yeah.
But a Corkery always pays his debt.
Yeah, and they're like, she's
okay,
like
you're
says
good
something
for
like,
it.
"Give me 3 weeks to sort it out," and he's like, "Okay, you're your father's daughter." And then we know.
I love how he described what Daenerys had done in Marine as, yes, the slave trade has taken a downturn.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. And then we cut to Jamie and the soldiers, and this is where we learn, which is really interesting, that yet again, 2 episodes in a row, Tyrion has given Daenerys really bad advice. Tyrion presumes to know what his siblings are going to do, and they know what he is thinking, and they completely outsmart him.
Well, hang on. I don't think it was that Jamie knew what Tyrion was going to do. Did he say that? I think
they predicted that
predicted
Tyrion would have
sent.
sent.
Yeah,
they
true.
predicted that Tyrion would have sent the troops to that place.
And I thought it was interesting how he just said that he learned from Robb Stark.
Yeah.
He learned from what Robb Stark's maneuver.
And did you notice when they when Jamie and the soldiers, land and Elena's looking down at them, and we have that shot of Jamie walking up? I only noticed this the second time. Jamie walks past a load of soldiers who just have buckets and buckets of gold. So they're basically in one foul swoop getting to Elena's place, killing her for betraying them, and taking all her gold. So they will pay the debt to the bank.
Well, this essentially Cersei knew that. That's what she said. Stick around, be my guest, my guest for 2 weeks. And she said,
I didn't notice the money the first time because I was too busy being so excited about the whole thing. But I just think Tyrion's done a pretty bad job now. This is 2 weeks in a row. He's done serious damage.
Yeah, good point. I mean, it seemed like a slam dunk. Daenerys getting over here with the dragons and all these armies, but.
They've really turned it around.
I mean, yes, Cersei's just really brought her A game, hasn't she?
And we saw that Sam's dad was with Jamie, so he's agreed to work with the Lannisters.
Yes, Randall's with them now. And we have to talk about the best scene.
The best scene in the whole episode, yeah.
Sayonara.
I just watched it again with relish.
Diana Rigg, because she was outstanding in throughout this whole series. I think she's my absolute favourite character.
She's amazing.
She's just delivered such brilliant, venomous.
Was she ever a queen? Because I was wondering if Queen's Justice could refer to her as well.
Good question. I don't think so.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, look.
I guess she was mother to the queen, or grandmother
ask your
to the queen.
Work friend Fiona, the book reader.
But yeah, this was amazing, and I just love when Jamie says, what's it called? Sorry, I keep forgetting. Casterly Rock.
Casterly Rock.
I can't read my own handwriting. Casterly Rock isn't worth much anymore. No big deal. And he just kind of, says like all the ships have been burnt anyway. of Daenerys' crew that all went there.
Yeah, which we saw. I didn't think they made that explicitly clear, but in the last scene with Grey Worm, we see him looking out over the castle walls, and there's fireballs being thrown at his ships, and it looks like it's Euron Greyjoy's flagship because it's a very distinct boat with sort of 3 giant sails
and lots of tongueless men, it appears.
So I think there's another example. He's back. He just went from like he destroyed one fleet.
But Elena might be very near King's Landing. I don't know that, do you?
Look, my geography's not great here, but
it was a nice exposition scene. Normally I don't like exposition scenes, but I appreciated Jamie saying, you know, I learned lessons from failures too, and I learned this and that from Robb Stark, because that's not stuff I remember, and I thought that was really interesting.
But Olenna is the queen of the put down, and she put him down. Well, she was like, well,
firstly she said, is that enough. Joffrey's sword? He really was a little cunt, wasn't he? And so Jamie's good. Like, and then she's like, your sister has done things I'm not capable of imagining. She's a monster. She'll be the end of you. She's a disease. I regret my role in spreading it. And then Jamie's just like, yeah, I know. And then he's like...
But then the best bit happens.
But he says, these are all the things Cersei wanted to do to you. She wanted to flay you. She wanted to hang you. She wanted to do all these things.
She's vicious.
But he's really nice. And he's like, I've just got you this painless poison.
Jamie is really nice.
And then...
for all his flaws, and he's clearly sided with the wrong person. And he's sticking with her. He makes that very clear.
Well, I mean, she is his lover and twin.
But he gave her a quick death. But I love how she just like grabbed it, because she was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, she guzzled it, because she knew if he found... She knew...
She wouldn't have got that death after what she wanted to say.
I mean, so basically...
So good.
So good. She just basically waits till she's drunk it all, and then says... Oh, your son. So she's also like, I know you're shagging your son Joffrey. He had a horrible death, didn't he? And then what did she say? I really enjoyed watching it. She basically said,
guess what? I killed Joffrey. But did it in the most badass way.
Yeah. She's like, no, she's going to die. And he's like really annoyed. He's given her this perfect, lovely poison. And she even says, even though I poisoned him, like, I still thought it was horrible to watch. So I don't know how you would have felt. And then she's like, so tell good. Cersei it was me, would you? Bye. That was so good. Oh, yeah, that was amazing.
Great episode.
Yeah,
really great.
Really good episode.
Now, we've been talking for a while.
We've been talking for too long.
Let's go to bed.
But yeah, so overall, I think I would say one of the better episodes of Game of Thrones I've ever seen. And I think there was a lot.
I don't know if I would put it up there in the pantheon of like great moments, because the show has had so many. But it's definitely the best this season. Not so much as great moments,
but as an overall propelling of the plot, it was so effective.
It's massively doing the job.
Yeah,
but they have to, don't they? There's only 7 here. They're
yeah. It just shows what they can do when they pick up the pace, and it's very impressive. So yeah, good.
Did we talk about Bran this morning?
We did, and we both hate him.
Okay.
Yeah. We established
just
that.
Alright, so just to recap, we hate Bran. Okay, let's go to bed.
Apologies that this episode's so long.
Yeah, sorry. It's just because we're babbling here. Let us know who your favourite Game of Thrones character is, and if it is Diana Riggs, Olenna Tyrell, because she is awesome. You can let us know on Twitter @TheCinemile, on Facebook, search The Cinemile, on Instagram @TheCinemile, or email us thecinemile@gmail.com.
So it's basically just The Cinemile everywhere.
There's got to be a better way of saying
and
that.
You can subscribe to us @The Cinemile on iTunes.
And please leave us a review @The Cinemile.
Yeah.
And our website is thecinemile.com.
Okay, now you're taking the piss. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you next week for Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4. Just making this even longer now.